Witchy Cottage by Nanny Linda. High on a hilltop, at the edge of a very dark wood, an old, thatched, tumble-down cottage stood. It had been the home of sisters of 5 who had all been witches when they were alive. Willow, Ursula, Cassandra and Jade, and recently Piper, had now all passed away. As witches, they had all been so generous and kind, helping people and animals in heart, soul and mind. Piper, the youngest, was the only one who had married and given birth to a son. That son had a daughter who he had named Sage, who would inherit the cottage when she came of age. So one morning in springtime, Sage travelled the road and came to the cottage, her late grandmother's abode. She climbed the high hill, which was slippery and steep, and over the rise a chimney did peep. Then the full cottage came into view, surrounded by woodland, old trees and some new. There was also a woodshed with logs stacked waist high, and a motorbike and sidecar she noticed inside, which was covered in leaves and twigs and dust, but she couldn't see any patches of rust. Sage gave it a rub, and the paint shone through, a beautiful colour of metallic blue. Sage's heart skipped a beat. She felt she had come home, even though it was empty and she was all alone. She opened the door, which wobbled and creaked, and peered into the darkness. It felt very bleak. Sage then opened the shutters to let in the light, and the magic of the sisters made it homely and bright. All had been left from Piper's last day, with her last will and testament left out on display. Just to confirm what Sage already knew, the cottage was hers now, and all the contents too. The hearth was all dusty, all fires long burned out, but the cauldron which hung there still looked sturdy and stout. The window-sills held candles, which were ready to light, with wax which had dripped but would light up the night. Shelves on the wall held spice and herbs in large jars, and dried garlic dangled from the ceiling like stars. Pictures of cats covered all of one wall, and on the mantel there stood a large crystal ball. On the table there lay a book of witch spells, and Sage spied a wand carved from wood from the dell. On a hook hung a black cloak and a pointy witch hat, and underneath on the floor buckled boots were sat. By the front door there stood a large broomstick, made of hazel and birch twigs, so sturdy and thick. A mirror hung from the wall, golden and ornate, and beside it were brushes and combs of all shapes, which belonged to the sisters to groom their long hair, and Piper, for remembrance, had kept them there. Sage then entered a room with 5 single beds, which were all covered with colourful hand-sewn throws and bedspreads. Hung on a rail, looking tattered and torn, were dresses and boots which Piper had worn. On the floor in the corner stood a large wooden trunk, which Sage peeped into, and it closed with a clunk. The contents inside, wrapped in tissue with great care, were the sisters' belongings, all the clothes they did wear, all their shoes, boots and stockings, all their hats, coats and gloves, Piper had kept as keepsakes, as fond memories with love. Sage then felt so sad because she had never known her grandmother and her great aunts, as she lived far from their home. In the trunk there were also diaries and books of their lives and their spells, and the recipes to cook. Sage immediately then knew she would come here to live, and to this old cottage her devotion she would give. She would tidy and clean, and from the books she would learn who and what her family were like, and what spells she could turn. She would practice good magic and help those in need, rethatch the roof, work in the garden and pull weeds. Sage decided that she would stay overnight, then leave for the town the next day at first light, so that she could make arrangements for the cottage's repair. Then as soon as possible she could move and live there. As Sage settled down in the cottage to sleep, she felt something rub and meow by her feet. She then heard more purring, so she opened her eyes, and saw 5 cats. Oh my, what a surprise! As shocked as she was, Sage wasn't afraid. A mist then appeared which swirled and swayed. And out of the mist 5 witches appeared, and one said to Sage, "I'm your grandmother, my dear." The other 4 witches smiled and waved and said, "We are so happy that our cottage is saved, and also that you want to come here to live, so all our knowledge of magic to you we freely give." Then slowly the mist began to fade away, and Sage then heard her grandmother say, "My darling Sage, I'm here for you in everything you want to do. In every spell you wish to learn, I will assist you at every turn. Just wave the wand and say 3 times, 'I love Witchy Cottage and it is mine.'" Sage awoke to a morning so gloriously bright and remembered her vision of the previous night. She looked around and rubbed her eyes. Cat's hair on her bedspread was not a surprise. The cottage had thoroughly been spring cleaned. Hearth renewed with logs and the mirror gleamed. Roof rethatched and floor swept too. Sage opened the door to a wonderful view. Garden all tidy, not a weed in sight. Motorbike and sidecar gleaming bright. Sage then heard a whisper in her ear, "From now on, it's all up to you, my dear."